favorite host, Babz and OO. So today we're going to be talking to someone we know and someone that is a very great at what he does. Or should I say, he's very good at what he does. I will encourage everybody to tune in to this show because someone was a master in business administration, is a vice president in security, will be talking to us on this show about global cybersecurity. Oh, I don't know if you have anything to add to this, but the guest is going to be amazing.
As usual, right? I'm actually itching to speak with him. So I won't bore anybody with my story. Let's just bring him in. Chalo!
Charles,
Hi,
welcome.
thank you. It's really great to be on this show. I've watched a couple of series of the show. Yemi and Tunde remain my bosses.
Uh,
When the global CISO is trying to tell you that
you
you're
understand?
a boss, you should be very careful. You're welcome here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Well,
we're
It's really
really
it's
happy
really
to
great
have
to
you.
be on the show, and really nice to connect again with you guys. And so we started off together. So I'm really excited to be here to see you, Tunde and Yemi. These are really great guys, and maximum respect to these two people on this show.
Oh,
thank you. We are honored. We are honored. Thank you for the accolades. So let's get straight into it. Like I said, it's been almost 10, 50, is it 10, more than 10 years now? We've not seen or spoken to each
Yep.
other since
mhm.
we've all gone our separate ways, but we are all in the industry of information and cyber security. And now we're all outside the country. We're now known as diasporans. We want you to give us an insight into yourself, your background, and how you got into this part of the vice president of a global information security.
Well, I would say that maybe if there's something you can call an accidental, a very famous, Nigerian wrote about the accidental civil servant. So if there's something you can call an accidental, you know, um, accidental CISO or accidental security professional, I think that would fit nicely into my story. I didn't set out to be in IT. Growing up, I had the ambition to be an aeronautic engineer. So that was
Wow.
what my childhood dream was. So when I got into school, I studied computer science because that was the only option then.
Hmm.
So I studied in University of Abuja, and in University of Abuja, then there was no engineering, there was no. The only thing we had was computer science, physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. Those were the sciences that we had in University of Abuja. So it wasn't so much like I had everything planned out. It was what was available, and I decided to go for it. But there's a way that maybe you can call it divine orchestration as well, because
Hmm.
I later on in life I got to realize that I had phobia for heights, so anything aeronautics would have been uh yeah. So that wouldn't have worked really. So, but getting into computer science program, I discovered that I really had a passion for computers. Then, first year we were just doing physics and mathematics, but once we did our first programming course, that was basic programming with QBasic. It was
Ah.
like I just discovered something that was so awesome. I went, above and beyond in that course. So in 100 levels, we did basic programming, and everyone else just left it there. But for
Hmm.
me, it was not enough.
Hmm.
After the course, I delved deeper. Started exploring with basic programming, writing different programs for myself, learning, going deep. Then, basic programming does not support connection to databases.
Yeah.
So I had to, start writing my own, file storing procedures to, retrieve data from files, store data from file in files. And, it was just so amazing for me. So that just kickstarted my love and passion for computing and IT. All the rest is history, because all my computing courses, I loved them. The curriculum then was not the best, because we didn't get introduced into, like, better or more powerful programming languages. So, for example, we never did C++ in school. We never did Java in school. But I went out of my way to learn Java for myself. So
Hmm.
I thought I was going to be a software developer, and I was really ready for it. But the way Nigeria is, I graduated, went to serve, and when I came back from service, the only job available that I could get at that point was as a network engineer.
Wow.
Hmm.
So that was
Another way you were being you were taking offers.
exactly.
Hmm.
Now the thing is that when I was in 300 level, in University of Abuja, then there was no CWS. The CWS where you go to do internship.
Yeah.
There was no CWS. I think I was the only person in my class that, you know, uh, wrote an application to. It was Allied Computers then in Abuja. Because the school was not arranging for any COS program. So I wrote an application to Allied Computers in Abuja then, that I wanted to, do an internship, because I think there was a strike or something, but there was a 3 months I was going to be at home. So instead of sitting at home, I wrote an application, and they accepted me,
Wow. That
as
was
as
being
an
proactive.
intern. Yeah. So big kudos to them, and this is to also send out the appreciation to Allied Computers. I don't know if they're still in business. I've not been in touch, but that kickstarted me, because I was able to, work with their engineers. Then they had this contract with CBN to maintain their systems. So that was the
Hmm.
first time I started, opening computers and identifying the RAM, different parts of the computer, and all that.
Wow.
So within those 3 months, I learned how to assemble computers, how to troubleshoot like hardware stuff. So when I went back to school, I started a business.
Business.
Charles. Interesting.
So I started fixing people's computers and
Wow.
charging for it, of course. I started, collecting money from people and building computers for them. These box computers with box monitors. Depending on your specifications, I would,
Yeah.
assemble the computer and, install the operating system, deliver it. And then I was always collecting money in advance, because I didn't have the money to buy the all the parts. So I would take the money, buy the parts, fix it, then whatever profit I have
Hmm.
on top was mine. So that experience really helped me in getting the network engineer role, because it seemed like that was the only part of the interview I could really
I could really, and respond to.
answer, because
Yeah.
I didn't I didn't have any experience with networking at that point. I just answered the questions based on my experience with hardware maintenance and all that. So I got the job, but that was a very interesting job, because when I got the job, I was supposed to be recruited with an experienced person who was going to mentor me, but the guy who was to mentor me didn't accept the offer. So I
Oh,
Oh.
was thrown. I was thrown into the company as complete zero knowledge of programming, and my boss then, God rest his soul, he's late now. He was an Indian guy, Gagana Arora, and he didn't just care. He just said, you're employed to do this thing. You just have to do it. And then it was the company was we were technical partners to immigration, and on a very sensitive project.
Yeah.
We had stations in different parts of the country, and I had to manage or supervise the other
Stations.
locations,
Yeah.
and this was me with almost no experience. We were running a Windows 2000 environment. Then I had never dealt with Active Directory. I had done a program with NIIT, where I learned about databases and Java programming and all that. So there was an SQL database to manage, which I could leverage on that. But I had to learn very fast, and that was my first experience of being thrown into the ocean. Between the devil and the deep blue sea, and you had to sink or swim. You get so I put in all I could, and I think that has defined my experience, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
So my experience so far has been I've always been in a situation where I would it was in sink or swim situations. My next job was the same thing as well. So after I left, I did that job for like 3 years, and moved on to my next job. So my next company was the first licensed credit bureau in Nigeria. So that's when Nigeria was going to start, credit referencing, where
Mm.
if you want to take a loan from a bank, then you need to ask for a credit report, a credit score. So the company I was working for was the first licensed credit bureau. So we're kind of pioneering the industry. There were, I think, three credit bureaus then that were computing. But I was thrown into a situation where the guy I was supposed to take over with had left to study in the UK and had left no handover.
Oh
So
no.
it was just me with servers, and then we had to host our portal in house. So
Yeah.
we were going to host our web servers on prem. Uh, hosting database data center hosting services were not very common then,
Yeah.
and in
Mhm.
Abuja, I don't think there was any in Abuja. So the only option we had was to host on prem. I was the head of network and systems, which means that everything fell on my shoulders. And again, I had an MD who didn't want to know. He just wanted
Yeah.
his stuff done.
Just give me results. So I
Just get
just
me.
get what you know.
Make sure it works. That's it.
Yeah, that was another learning curve. And I was coming from like a pure technical role in my previous job. I didn't have to do any reporting. I didn't have to do any kind of stuff, that was managerial in any way. It was just focusing on the job and getting the job done. So moving to this new role, I had to do daily reports, monthly reports, weekly reports, quarterly reports. And this was something I was struggling with. I had to
Mm.
start writing policies, which I had never done before. So it was a huge learning curve as well. And I managed uh, to do the role for another 3 years. Before we met in NIMSI. So I think it was in this role that I developed, a passion for security.
Ah.
Because while in this role, I was handling the network and systems and everything. We had consultants from South Africa who were supposed to install. It was a FortiGate firewall then, Fortinet. We're
Wow.
supposed to install, a firewall. That was one of the things they were supposed to install. So uh, they came in, they installed the servers, they deployed the applications, everything was good, but somehow they couldn't get this firewall to work.
Hmm.
You get so they tried, and they couldn't install the firewall, and they had to go back without installing this firewall. So I was left with I had never worked on firewalls at that point, so I was left with this FortiGate box, and I knew if we're going to host our servers in house, not having a firewall
It's a disaster.
was not going to, it was a no no.
Yeah.
So I had to go dig into documentation, started reading up FortiGate documentation, started reading, and that was where I discovered, the world of security. I knew how to implement access lists in, routers and,
Sweet one.
but with the firewall, it was a UTM at that point. So it wasn't just layer 3 and 4 port and IP filtering, because then I could do like IDS, I could do application inspection and all that. I was really fascinated. So that was my introduction to security. So in reading, the documentations, I had to research about firewalls. Then I stumbled into Cisco CCNA security materials. I started reading up on all those. It was so interesting, and I think that was when I did my CCNA security, and that was how I just focused on security.
That's correct.
So coming to NIMC, I already had some experience with, network security, firewalls, and all that. So I just naturally fit into the network security role. And, that was where I met these two amazing guys. And so you're seeing the three guys who pretty much built started off, security in that organization. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and these two guys introduced me to information security. Yeah, so that's my journey in security, and taking the organization through ISO certification. I was a part of the implementation team.
Yeah.
So a lot of the technical controls I was
Yeah.
working with Tunde and to implement those controls, and I was very interested in what was the whole ISO
That's all.
thing. Then we did the PCI one, and that was another good experience for me, and I just picked up all those things. In the process, we did the lead auditor, lead implementer
Yeah.
certification exams, you know and that was really interesting.
You're bringing too many memories. I might start
This
crying. But hey,
this is incredible. This journey is unique because you went through a lot of different area of cybersecurity to
Mhm.
land in a point where you became part of a big project, a national project focusing
Yeah.
on network security, and then now you're a global CISO. How did you transition from those all the technical roles now is to less technical role? But what was the motivation again? Was it one of those experiences where you were thrown into a deep end? I'd like to know.
Yeah, I would say that I had this passion for security, and when it came to security, just being in a narrow function was not satisfying enough for me. I was always exploring as much as possible. Always going. I was going beyond my defined job description. To I was
Mm,
reaching out to learn as much as possible to understand, what was out there. All that, accumulated into building a skill set that for me was beyond the role that I was handling.
mm,
So I was handling a core technical role, but I was also interested in some of the like risk governance. I
yeah.
was, always doing courses online on risk management and
Mm,
stuff like that. I joined like ISO 27001 forums, and I would always get information. I'll read up on people's experiences, and it was great then, because the motivation at that point, I don't think it was really money, because I'm sure you guys know that that couldn't have been the motivation where we were.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
was just like a raw passion, just passion for doing what you love and what you enjoy, and just going all the way with it. So when I started thinking of. So I left NIMSI in 2018, and after I left NIMSI, I started. I did my own private consulting for 1 year,
Wow.
and I did my private consulting. I was working on like much bigger projects that involved more than the skill set I was deploying in NIMSI. So I did that for 1 year, and when I started thinking about going abroad, I just started applying for jobs. I just started looking up and applying for jobs, and I discovered country Estonia. I'm sure a lot of people will say, where is that? That was my first reaction as well when I heard Estonia. And there was a head of information security role which I applied for. The core deliverable, at least for the first part of the role, was to deliver ISO 27001 certification to the organization. And due to my experience and my involvement with the ISO program, I felt confident to apply. So
Hmm.
we had the interviews over Skype, and I remember it was two interviews. First interview, was quite technical, and so my technical background helped with that
Hmm.
interview. But the second interview was less technical. It was, more on leadership and all that. And on leadership, I was leading a team in NIMSI. When we were in NIMSI, I was the head of network security at
Texas.
that
Yeah.
point. But I also had done a lot of trainings on leadership. I had volunteered in my church then, where I was also in charge of the volunteer workforce. So that also exposed me to a lot of leadership trainings as well, free of charge. So all of that, I think, added up to help me with the technical part, the leadership part. And from what I got to understand later on that the role was keenly contested. There was a lot of competition from people from different parts of the world for this particular role, and I got the job offer, and I was relocated from Nigeria to start up this role. But that was being head of security. You can imagine that it was another situation where I was thrown into the deep sea again, because one, I was used to working with traditional technologies, on-prem data centers, your traditional networking and all of that.
Hmm.
And I joined an organization where they didn't have a single device on-prem.
Oh my.
So, uh, first of all,
That's
that was my
interesting.
introduction. That was my
Yeah.
introduction into another another world of cloud security. So for the first time, I had heard about Kubernetes and all that, but I really didn't pay much attention. I hadn't read about it. I hadn't researched it. I really didn't know how it worked. So you know, just on this role, the company was running 100% on microservices driven by Kubernetes, Docker.
Wow.
There was nothing on-prem. And now I had to head security in an organization that had an infrastructure that I didn't understand. My first month in that role, then it was a good thing my family hadn't joined me then. So I
Yeah.
would go back home every
I can
day,
imagine.
Yeah.
and it was like I studied more than I did when I was preparing for my finals in
Yeah, I can
in school, because there were these new stuff that I had to understand. Long story short, I had very very supportive colleagues, and I wasn't afraid to ask questions. I would ask questions. I would go do my research, study, and every day was like a learning process for
Hmm.
me. So uh, I think I adapted into the role. Um, And now, a lot of people say fake it until you make it, but that was not really the case for me because I was quite honest with my organization that, these technologies are new to me and I need to get on top of it. And they gave me the time to adapt and to learn. So I really appreciate them for that. And I had the opportunity. I was the first, security employee of the company, and I had the opportunity to build my team. So the first thing, I pulled someone, who was security savvy, also from the IT operations team. So he was my first team member, and that helped a lot because he already had a lot of institutional knowledge. And yeah, built the team, and then I was head of information security, not VP and CISO. So that's another interesting story again because my company got acquired by a bigger US company. So
Ah,
when my company got acquired by the US company, in the company that they acquired, I was the head of information security. In the US company that acquired us, they had a director of information security. And again, the company did something that was, unprecedented. Usually, you just report into the organization that bought you. So, but the we had a lot of conversations then, and the CEO then was very very cool guy, and he agreed to create a global security team that would report directly to him. So, and he decided that he was going to merge the two teams and he was going to leave the lead role open for competition.
interesting.
So, so I had an opportunity to compete again for that role. So I, applied for the role, and there were two of us, and we competed for the role. And for some reason, I was given the lead role. So the guy from the US. We still work together, so he reports to me now. But we have, I think he's also a very mature person because uh, that has not affected our relationship. We have a great working relationship and all that. So, but that's just why I said if there's something like an accidental CISO, maybe, looking at
Wow.
my story, it's like
Yeah.
just,
That's an amazing, amazing story, amazing journey. I, to be honest, and I think the company you're working for as well is also should be proud that they have someone like you as well. So it's a two-way sword. So to be honest, I now noticed looking at your profile, I noticed you did an MBA, and I wanted to
yeah.
understand was there a particular reason for that, and how has it impacted your role as a CISO?
I think this is probably, the parts that, more technical people do not like. Getting, higher in leadership, I discovered that my technical skills were getting less relevant.
Hmm.
And, I needed more business skills. I needed to understand, you know, the business thinking. I needed to understand how to communicate from a business perspective. One of the biggest eye openers for me, which is it sounds like it might be taken for granted, but doing the MBA course, I think it dawned on me that no business is set up to be secure, or the core objective of, except if you're a cybersecurity company, but even with cybersecurity companies, right, the core objective is to make profit.
Absolutely.
Now, depending on the kind of organization, maybe you work for a government organization, maybe profit is not the key thing. But for most businesses, people who define themselves as businesses, organizations who are like into critical infrastructure and all that, they might have other objectives, but you need to understand, the objective of your business,
Yeah.
right? So nobody sets up a business with the sole objective of who will be the most secure business in the world, or in the US, or in Europe. Everybody sets up a business because they want to make profit. And to the extent that your role supports that vision, you're relevant.
Yeah.
So to the extent that it doesn't support that vision, then you have less relevance within the company. What business leaders are concerned about is the top line and the bottom line. The top line being the revenue, the bottom line being the profits. Everything in between that defines the business, the efficiency of the business. So, except if you're a cybersecurity company, security does not contribute to the top line because you're not making money from security. The next thing is you need to be able to justify how you're going to support the bottom line,
Yeah.
which is the profit. So if you are going to understand the business, you must understand what the core business objective is. If it is to make money or whatever it is, if it is to support life or whatever it is, you must understand what the core business objective is. You must understand what your competitive advantage is. You must understand what your value proposition as a business is. So these will guide you in designing your security program because let's say, for example, your value proposition is that we offer the simplest registration flow for users. And this is how you want to compete. And that is what the business wants to achieve, to offer the simplest registration flow. Now, you as a security professional
Professional.
needs to understand that this is what the business needs to approach to achieve. So if you're coming to say, no, we can't offer the simplest flow, we have to introduce captchas, we need to introduce, different, roadblocks. Now,
Roadblocks.
these are good for security, but at
Not
that
good for
point,
business.
it's not good for the business. So you need to understand that, the business needs to make money to pay for security.
Yeah.
And if you become, if you become a blocker to the business, they will just push you aside. And when they push you aside, it becomes very difficult to even get funding for anything. You begin to hear about things that are implemented after the fact, right? So they go ahead and do stuff
Shadow IT.
because they know that if they involve security, security would block them. So it was important for me to understand the business thinking, what is important to the business, and how do I use security to support
The business.
these business objectives. So that is what gives you relevance as a security professional. So I always give this example. I think it was in 2015. I know you guys would remember this when President Goodluck Jonathan was going for re-election, and the morale of the military then was low. The military was losing the war against insurgency in the northeast, and he needed to boost their morale. And I guess you guys remember this, that he actually went to meet the guys in the northeast, the soldiers who were in the battlefront in the northeast, and he had that famous camouflage and all that. And I use that to interact with people and say that is what good security is all about. The security aides to the president then would have told him that, Mr. President, this is too risky for you, we will not allow you to go. But good security is understanding what the objective is and making it possible for the business to take on that venture, that opportunity, by managing the risks around where the business is going. So, as a CISO, your main responsibility is the chief risk manager. Without limiting the business, how do you allow the business to achieve their objectives with reduced risk? So, in the case of the login flow, for example, now what that means is that instead of putting more roadblocks on the users, right, to restrict them, you take on more responsibility from security. So that means that your detection and monitoring has to be top notch.
Yeah.
You have to start thinking out of the box, right? So probably you want to start monitoring dark web to see users that have compromised credentials. And when those users are logging in, you want to give them maybe something additional. You get, you want to, monitor your user database. You want to implement better bot protection so that you don't have bots
That's
spamming your registration
spam, yeah.
endpoints and all that. So
Hmm.
it's just that you understand the business objective. It might mean you doing more work as security. The easiest way to do security is to block everything.
Yeah.
Like
Make
block everything.
Doesn't make
everything
life good.
everything is offline. Unplug
Yes.
it.
Yeah. A more effective security is has to go beyond just blocking everything, understanding what the risks are, understanding what the rewards are, and helping your business to balance the risk and to manage the risk. It's not possible not to have risks. Also, disclose the risks to the business. Say, okay, I understand this is what the business wants to do. This is the risk associated with this venture. If you, as a CISO, believe that the risk is more than the reward, it's your responsibility to communicate it to the board.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You communicate it to the board, and if the board says that they want to accept it, you can't be more Catholic than the Pope.
Yeah.
That is what the business wants to do.
That's
Document it, and that is
exactly.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
you know,
Hmm.
Sometimes we have
Interesting.
security people fighting the board, fighting the management, fighting everybody. You should understand that you don't love the business more than the business owners.
Oh, no,
Your
it's
role
absolutely.
is to manage their risk, communicate the risk to them, and also we some CISOs can be like, we've had CISOs who get collateral damage, who become collateral damage when there
Yeah.
is a cybersecurity incident,
Yes.
right? So that's
Yeah.
when that's why you need to get your governance, right.
Yeah.
Ensure that you're doing your risk assessments, you're communicating the risks to the board, you're looking at the incidents, your cybersecurity incidents, you're monitoring your threat landscape, you're monitoring the trend of events, and you're advising on what should be, what course of action should be taken. And if the board and management do not take those advice, have it documented,
Yeah.
because
They need to
anything can
risk.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Charles. I think what you did right now is to give a crash course on NBA applicability to a CISO office or to cybersecurity, just like
Yeah.
that. So, guys, this is worth a lot. You probably will not get this out there. People will say, I did MBA for MBA's sake. Well, this is MBA for cybersecurity. And I'll go to the next question. Now that you have nailed that, you've answered that properly, what do you envision on the roadmap to cybersecurity? And I know you've gone through from the brick and mortar to the next generation. Now, what's on the horizon? What can people that are watching today says, okay, this is the next thing that is coming? Well, what is the future of cybersecurity?
I think we are at a very interesting turn in the technology industry and in cybersecurity as well, because each time there is an advancement in technology, it's like a two-edged sword for security. One side of the sword, we harm security. The other side of the sword, is okay. Let me just put that like this: it presents risks and opportunities,
Hmm.
Yeah.
because risk and opportunities are two sides of the same coin. So
Hmm.
every time you have, a risk, on the other side, there are opportunities. So for example, with everything as a service, right? It came with risks and also came with opportunities. It
Hmm.
came with risk for cybersecurity. It also came with opportunities for cybersecurity. Now we're at a very interesting turn of, artificial intelligence,
Hmm.
and I believe that this holds very significant risks as well as opportunities for cybersecurity. It's one topic that has I'm getting quite fascinated about, and it's getting very very much interesting for me, just because of the potential that artificial intelligence holds. So if you look at the cybersecurity landscape, not just the just technology landscape, throughout the years, the more you get the increase in processing power, the more we have sophisticated attacks in that sense, right? There was a time that it would take maybe years to break even a one password. But now, with quantum computing on the horizon, we don't even have any secure encryption anymore.
Hmm.
Yeah.
When we take that turn, all the uh, you know encryption algorithms we have now would probably be as secure as password one, that we have now. So that is creating a lot of opportunities as well as risks for cybersecurity. So
Hmm.
with everything as a service, we began to see malware as a service, phishing as a service, ransomware as a service. The barrier for entry into malicious activity is now very low. You
Yeah.
don't need any technical expertise. You don't need any cybersecurity expertise. You just need to have an intention to commit harm. And there are companies out there structured like normal businesses who would offer you their solutions as a service. You just need to create an account.
Yep.
It's just like going to any of the let's say Gmail
E-commerce
or
sites, shops like
yeah,
Exactly.
that.
you create an account, and so you
That's it.
can pretty much just create an account and you have access to all the sophisticated phishing um, emails, and not just the phishing emails. They have a whole ecosystem about how these phishing emails are deployed, how they are monitored,
That,
and even they even have customer service. So it's like a full business. So with ransomware as a service, you can easily deploy ransomware full circle, without having any technical knowledge. You just
knowledge.
have to point to a a victim you want to attack, and the rest is history. Then you do profit sharing at the end of the day. So that came with cloud computing and everything that is as a service.
Hmm.
There are risks, there are opportunities, and for cybersecurity as well, we also have a lot of cybersecurity solutions that are as a service also. So you have your secure edge, you have
Of your
like
SASE.
firewall as a service,
Mhm.
SASE. So all these are risks and opportunities which
As well.
the cloud computing has presented. So in
Hmm.
with artificial intelligence, it's the same thing as well. So it presents opportunities, and it also has its own challenges, its own risks that we as cybersecurity professionals need to start investigating and finding how we can mitigate. And also, anything that is done at the speed of I believe personally, can only be mitigated at the speed of AI.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
So if so take for example, you have it's like security event, like 1,000 lines of security events. Now, the security operations structure is that you have a security analyst investigating, these security alerts,
Yep.
and it might take, depending on the complexity of the alert, it might take an hour, it might take 30 minutes, it might take, half a day to investigate an alert to say, okay, whether it's false positive or not. And you can imagine the workload,
Yep.
which you're going to accumulate
Run,
at the end of
running
the
a
day.
sock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Imagine, an AI powered malware, which
Hmm.
is able to change its signature each time it runs.
Hmm.
So you can just have right now, you have ChatGPT generating code, you have, Gemini, all the AI stuff, generative AI out there, which are generating code on the fly.
Yep.
So you don't even need to be a technical person to write a malware.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
You get? So you can have, and all these have APIs, right? So with APIs, you can easily, just ask it that, okay, for every time this application runs, change something in it, it gets a new signature. So behavioral analysis might be the only thing we can begin to depend on. And this behavioral analysis has to be based on good, AI powered models,
Yeah.
right? Then, on the other hand, with ChatGPT, with the generative AI, the interesting thing is that they have the contextual ability to kind of understand. They don't understand in the human sense, but they kind of understand the context of text and all that.
Yeah.
So usually we have the traditional static code analysis, which is done by security engineers, software guys write code, and it's reviewed by maybe a security engineer to check
Yeah. Remember,
for.
yeah.
Now, an opportunity I see there is that you can integrate your code repository with any of these generative AI models. I did a test. I wrote a short Python script just to add two numbers, and I, copied this code and put it on Gemini. I asked Gemini to find vulnerabilities in that code based on OWASP top 10 vulnerability. And just from like 4 lines of code, Gemini was able to produce a nice report of all the vulnerabilities that it found in that code.
Wow.
So for me, this is an opportunity.
Hmm.
Imagine you integrate this into your, development pipeline.
Yeah. Yeah.
These days most companies are doing containerization, so which means that you write your code, you need to, maybe you're using Docker or any of
Yeah.
the container tools out there. Now, before you build your Docker code, what we have now is that we have a lot of tools which allow you to do vulnerability scanning, so you can scan those Docker images
Yeah.
during the
Yeah.
build process.
Yeah.
You identify the vulnerabilities, but that is limited to identify vulnerabilities within the dependencies of the code.
Oh, the code.
So
Yes.
all your dependencies, like all the libraries, that
Yes.
is going to be used to build the container. But the static code analysis, let's say the code has SQL injection vulnerability or cross-site scripting or any of the web application vulnerabilities out there. You need you need to understand the semantic of that code to be able to identify that vulnerability. A lot of the static code scanners do not get the full context of that code. But if you feed that code into generative AI, it can generate an output for you that tells you that, hey, this code is vulnerable to any of these vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
and you can decide to fail that build in the process until that vulnerability is fixed. So that's an opportunity right there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
we also have an opportunity with insecurity operations, where when these generative AI tools are very good with simple tasks like summarization, and stuff like that. You can just ask for a summary. Maybe you have like 1,000 lines of events to deal with. You can
Yeah.
just feed it in and say, okay, give me a summary of these. I want like all the users who logged in from Sweden, from Canada. It can help to create that for you, and you can have a dashboard that makes it easier for the security analyst to make an informed decision. So these
Absolutely.
are the opportunities that, some of the opportunities that we can get from generative AI. But on the flip side, there are a lot of risks as well.
As well.
So
Absolutely.
I was reading about a company where an accountant in the company was
Mm-hmm.
on a video call with top executives from the company, which were all deepfakes.
Yeah.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if
I
you
Yeah.
read
remember
the
that.
news.
Yeah.
You get
Yes.
so now imagine that,
At scale.
right? Yeah, so we need to that's going from that's be going beyond the scope of our cybersecurity, right? We need to start looking at digital security right now.
Yes.
You
Absolutely.
get,
I agree,
because
man.
how do we detect deepfake?
Yeah.
I believe that goes a bit beyond, how we have done cybersecurity so far.
And
We need to be
nobody
able to
should do
detect.
deepfake on this video.
So I believe AI is we're at the turn where
Yeah.
AI is going to change a lot of things.
Yeah. And I'm super happy for what you talked about, because the security companies, at least the top security companies, apart from smaller ones that produce something, they are stepping up to it, like Microsoft
Yeah.
Copilot, Checkpoint is
Exactly.
also integrating
Yeah.
Copilot. Some other ones are integrating Copilot as well. And Microsoft is even have XDR now that could do more like an instant incident response. So we are at the cups of a very good way of managing security in a faster way. At the same time, for anybody that's listening to this, that means we still got a job.
Exactly.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
let me put a disclaimer here. I can't say that about all the professions. So for cybersecurity, this is my thinking ahead and looking ahead at. I this is futuristic, but when we started out, if you look at the history of computing, at first you needed to learn low level languages like
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
assembly language, machine language to be
Yeah.
able to
Yep.
write instructions that machines could follow.
Yep.
Yeah.
It evolved to a point where we can now have high level languages where you can use human like language, but you needed to
Natural
follow strict
languages.
semantic and
Yeah.
syntactic
Mhm.
rules to be able to
Yeah.
define the instructions in a way that the computers can understand. I believe we're getting to a point where AIs will do all the coding. What we might need to learn is prompt engineering, how
Yes.
to give them the instructions in you know using natural language, and
Yeah.
they will generate the code on top of that. So
Absolutely.
I guess that is already putting some jobs at risk.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then what
True.
you talked about before today says something, because I know he's eager to say something. Talked about as well resonate, because we now need to be more business centric. Like
Hmm.
if AI can write a code, can respond to an incident, can do reporting, then we need to be able to interact with our management. And that is where, as technical people or people focused on security, needs to come in another angle on how to actually help the business to accelerate, because competition is out there for the business right now.
Yeah,
As we're talking about AI, business too is being accelerated by AI. Competition is coming with them,
Exactly.
with
yeah,
newer organizations who don't need to have the kind of head count that they have, and they are
Yeah.
moving so in an agile world. So security needs to move in that direction as well. Babz, go ahead.
Absolutely.
yeah, true.
Well, I was going to take us a little bit backwards, but again, I think it's something that the viewers will want to know. You've worked in Nigeria. Now you're working as a global information security in Estonia. What are the cultural differences you've come across?
There are huge cultural differences. Now, Estonia is a peculiar country because, and it's a sharp contrast to to Nigeria. Nigerians, we are very communicative people. We are very expressive. We are very communicative. We enjoy to be with ourselves. We enjoy, that community without, you know, falling into the trap of, faulty generalization. But I think it can be inferred for bigger number percentage of the population that they like to keep to themselves and have their own space. And the culture here is not much of direct communication. We are very direct in Nigeria. If I like you, I tell you. If I don't like you, I
Yeah,
tell you.
Yeah.
If you do
yeah,
something, I
yeah.
I give it to you. And
Straight.
we can drag ourselves now. The next minute we are drinking together.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
just gel.
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
get.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, but the communication style for me was very different. In that you need to learn how to. I find that people receive communication in a much more diplomatic way, back in Nigeria. So, that for me was a culture shock, right? In the fact that, okay, now you want to say something, but you can't really say it. You have to
Find.
try to insinuate it somehow.
Or
So
diplomatic.
yeah, diplomatic. He has to come out, very diplomatic. So for me, that was something I had to adapt with. And I got a
Fantastic.
feedback from one of my team members, during our one-on-ones, that my communication style is very forceful, and it feels like I'm very commanding. You get
Ah,
so, and for me, I valued that feedback so much because we are very expressive, but when
yes.
you're communicating in a way that people might not understand, that expressiveness, it becomes like, they feel like it's commanding. It's So for me, I consciously try to dial back a bit and remind myself that, okay, I need to calm down, take it slow, and you get. So sometimes it's still, I feel it's still something that I'm working on, but that's something that was very different. And
Fantastic.
the interesting thing as well is that, you know, having a global team, we have team members in the US as well. So the communication style for people in the US and people in Europe is also very different.
Yes.
You get
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
approach to the business philosophy is also very different. In Europe, is very chill. Live, people work to live.
Yeah.
So the work-life balance is very
Im-
important in
Important.
Europe,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but in the US, it's like it's not as important as it is. It's not like it's not important, but for the US, it's like you have to just get your job done, and
Yeah.
um, there's a lot more focus and a lot more expectations, for you to deliver for the US side of the business than in Europe. But the good thing is that working in Nigeria, and it prepares you for
Hmm.
anything. You
Hmm.
get
Exactly.
I'm comfortable working with the US guys because it's like
You're
it's
walking
like
back home.
Working from home. Working back.
yeah.
Yeah.
And also in Europe here, it's nice to have that work life balance, I must also say.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll jump into a question that's been burning on my mind because some other younger people will look at Charles and say, wow, that's a journey. You've moved from this to this. If I want to start now, if where can I start? What can I do?
I would say that it's never too late to start, and you can always start by taking the first step. You know, and I know the question might be, so what is my first step,
Yeah.
right? So there are different routes into cybersecurity. So the first thing you might need to figure out is whether you're a technical person or a non-technical, and what you enjoy doing.
Mm,
So do you have the ability to get down to the ones and the zeros, or are you someone who is more business inclined? Are you someone
mm,
that is more risk inclined? Are you someone that has a penchant for documentation? Now, whatever your passion is, right? Cybersecurity is so wide that it can accommodate those skill sets. I think, let me make a digression here. I think this is also one of the difficult things to sell to board and management. They don't It's difficult for them to understand that security is not just one role.
yeah.
It's like, why do you need 10 people in a cybersecurity
Yeah.
department? Why do you need 15 people? You
Exactly.
get, security is not just one thing, like, but there are diverse skill sets, within security, which are not similar. So it depends on what you feel your strengths are. Starting off anywhere in IT is a good step
Mm,
to getting into cybersecurity. But if you've been someone who is more non-technical, maybe you've done accounting, you've
yeah.
done, you're familiar with risks, there's a route as well for risk management. There's also a route for auditing, right? So
Mm,
if so it depends on what you like to do. And I don't think there is one path that fits all. So based on your strengths and what you enjoy doing, there is a route and an entry point into cybersecurity. But advice for all would be go above and beyond with your passion,
Hmm.
right? Whatever you're passionate about. For the younger, people, don't put money first.
Hmm.
When you learn the skills, value will call on value, right? It's like when you have value, when you have something to give, right? It will call on the commensurate, value in terms of monetary terms with time.
Hmm.
But when you start out chasing the money, what you see that you might make the money at first, then there is no value to support that level of,
Your
of
earnings.
of earnings. Then when you find yourself in some situations, it becomes a bit challenging to get back to that level of earning. So
Absolutely.
focus on, what you love doing, go above and beyond with it, and build capacity within yourself and wait for the opportunity.
That's
Thank
loaded.
you very much. I think you've nailed everything, especially when you said don't do this for money. You can see the three guys right here. We came from a background where we definitely know we did not do it for money.
Absolutely.
But it has taken
Sure.
us to where
Like,
we are now. So
yeah.
Yeah.
we are we are all like, we're all in our various spaces and doing well in our various spaces. And like Charles, we just want to say thank you for coming on the show, and we really definitely appreciate your time. Like I said, your organization, if I could reach out to them, I'll say they're very, very lucky to have someone like you in the information
Good.
security space with them. I don't know. Oh, do you want to say anything before we let Charles
No,
go?
I think we'll still be bringing Charles back. And for anyone that is listening, we also have a program that is in the works, which is going to be capture the flag, but there's a mentoring part of it, and someone like Charles will be very good to have on that program to be able to mentor some of you who are just upcoming, or you're already in the field and you want to take a path or a detour into some other non-technical position. Charles can actually help you, and as you can see, he's a prof, as an MBA. He could actually lecture you to the dance and from technical to non-technical. So please, Charles, we would like to have you even much more on that.
I'll be honored. I'll be honored to come in.
Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you much.
We hope to see you again.
Thank you so much. Thanks for bringing me on the show, and yeah, I hope to be back soon.
Yeah.
Hello, gentlemen. Wow, that was a loaded session with Charles Onochie, VP Global Information Security. I mean, like I said, our guests are always back to back, and they don't disappoint. Charles definitely did not disappoint. He laid it all out. You could see his experience all the way from Nigeria, now in Estonia, and delivering on all the knowledge and wealth of skills he is gotten over the years. I think talking to him was mind blowing from my perspective. He taught places that I didn't even know he had in him, but that's why I said he couldn't just be a global CISO. He definitely deserved that title.
Yeah. I support that. And to every one of you, we're looking forward to bringing more great guests. See you in our next episode.
And don't forget to subscribe
Subscribe.
before you go. Thank you all.